Hi everybody, it's Mark here. Just a quick video review for A Man in Christ, written by Roger Steer, and it's a biography about J. Hudson Taylor. Now, if you don't know who J. Hudson Taylor is, he is the founder of what is now called the OMF. Back when he founded it in the early to mid-19th century, it was called the China Inland Mission. And this is a book documenting his conversion, actually, to begin with, his calling to missionary work in China, and his experiences from that whole beginning to when he passed away. And this book it's quite simply fantastic. I read this, from what I recall, in a single sitting. I went to visit an area mobiliser for the OMF, because I'm interested in missionary work myself, and that's something that's been going on in the background for a while. They gave me this book for free, which is great. You know, I love a free book, and I didn't actually expect a great deal from this, I have to admit. They gave me this and I thought, okay, great, you know. But when I started reading it, wow, you know, it really, really caught me by surprise. As I said, I started reading it and I just couldn't put it down. Again, it's another fantastic book. And I've highlighted this just constantly, that it's got lots of bookmarks in it. It is an absolutely fascinating book. Just so you know where to get it from, and I will try and put some links under the video as well. You can buy this on Amazon at, what is the price here? $7.99. I think it's great. Well, it even says that you can buy it used for £2.79. It's just, you know, this is a really, really good book. If you're interested in overseas missionary work, certainly in Asia, like I am, this book is absolutely invaluable. And I did want to share a couple of things about this because, as I said, I'm quite interested in missionary work myself. I've been doing some research, and I've been talking to quite a lot of people. I'm going to events about this, and it's something that I really feel that God is calling me to do. And what I really like about this, and what I particularly like about Hudson Taylor, is his whole attitude to missionary work. He originally was sent out by the CES, the China Evangelical Society, and he started to have some difficulties with them. And they weren't just impossible difficulties, but I think he found the organisation had some problems, and I don't think he really particularly liked the way that they did things. So they parted company mutually. It wasn't, you know, there wasn't a horrifying argument or anything. They parted company mutually. But he set about setting up the China Inland Mission with some really extraordinary mission statements, and also on the character of missionaries, which I feel that a lot of missionary societies and agencies nowadays could do well to pay attention to. As far as I'm aware, it's still the case for the OMF, although things have changed slightly, but the core ethos is pretty much the same. And you know, I just wanted to share this really with you guys as part of this book, and you'll find this reading through this, that he talks like this about everything, and I think it's fascinating. So let me just read you a quote and a couple of things about what in his definition makes a great missionary. So he writes here, we wish to see churches in Christian Chinese presided over by pastors and officers of their own countrymen, worshipping the true God in the land of their fathers, in the costume of their fathers, in their own tongue wherein they were born, and in edifices of a thoroughly Chinese style of architecture. So he advocated, you know, this kind of cultural Christianity, and not taking anything away from, you know, biblical teaching, nothing like that. But what he's saying is that when you deliver this mission, that it should be in respect of that country, you know, so in their language, in their dress, you know, in their places where they live, and not by transplanting Western culture and language into that country. So we shouldn't, what he's saying is we shouldn't be building these huge churches in the Western style and preaching in English, you know, wearing English clothes and all the rest of it. So, you know, I quite like that. I think that's the way it should be done, because you don't go to a country, well, you go to a country preaching the gospel, but you don't go there preaching that they're wrong in the way that they live their lives there. You're only trying to educate them from a gospel perspective. So I really like the way that he talks. And let me give you the 7 qualities of a missionary in his opinion. And this was in the very late 19th century that this was written. And I particularly like this, and I can really identify with it. And I think that anyone listening to these words would think, that's what I think a missionary should be. So let me just share this with you and my thoughts on these points, and then I'll close. It says here, so point 1, they have an excellent spirit, self-denying, with singleness of aim, devotional with a spirit of faith, of love, of humility. Now that's just the first one of 7, and I really, really like that. I think that says a lot about the character of the individual that they're looking for. So number 2, this one also very important, their operations are carried on with great efficiency and economy. So they're expected to live frugally, and what they're saying is don't waste money unnecessarily. There's an obvious appreciation that missionary work, there's a cost to that process, but don't spend more than you have to. Do what you need to do to share the gospel, and that's it in a nutshell. So number 3, and this relates as well to the quote that I just gave, they are able and willing to bring themselves into close contact with the people by living in their houses, using their dress, and living for the most part on their food. In short, becoming all things unto all men, that they may save some. And that's just a great statement. And it's really about, so firstly, in the original quote I gave, it's about respecting that culture. But this part is about embedding yourself in that culture, being a part of that culture. So if you're going to China, learn the language, sample the food, become a part of that culture. And you hear that a lot, and not just in mission work, but a lot of different work. Like the military, for example, the hearts and mind things that they do. It's very similar to that. So you embed yourself in that culture. You need to make them feel comfortable with you as well. And really, if you're not doing that, you're missing out on everything that's great about that culture, everything. So, for example, the Philippines is very, very close to my heart. And I'm hoping and praying that I'll get involved in that closer as the future progresses. So, if I was to do that, I would consider it a joy to learn the language, Mandarin or Tagalog or Thai or whatever it is that you would have to learn to go to that country. You should do that and enjoy it, because you get to immerse yourself in that culture. You then understand their culture and you can relate to them better. So it's equipping you to better sort of preach. So why would you not do it? It's fantastic advice, and definitely it's what you should do. And the next one as well is quite really important. I mean, these are all important. They are widely scattered, but 1 or 2 families in a city. Now, that doesn't sound like much on the face of it, but what it really says is don't saturate your missionary activity in a single city. You need to spread out. Maybe have 1 or 2, in this case, like in Shanghai or something, but have others strategically placed in towns around the province. Don't just all bunch up in Shanghai, or again, in today's world, don't just bunch up in a capital or a prominent, port or something, but spread out. So again, sound advice, because great, you can preach the gospel to a city or a town, but what about the province around it? Exactly, so good advice. Number 5, they're having good success. Many are doing a great amount of preaching and praying, and souls are added to the church and are truly converted. So, with this, again, it's really important because it's, and I read about an account of this, I think it was in this book or another book, that a Dutch or German guy had been told that many people were being saved and converted, but they were all falsified. So, that was a terrible situation. He ended up leaving, and he sort of spent the rest of his life in just sort of real depression and trouble. So it's important as well that there's a measured success, and that it's checked out and verified. Don't just take somebody's word for it. You need to be a part of that whole process, that whole system, and you need to know if someone's being converted and so on. This one, though, is the one that I particularly like and want to share on this video. They are not generally educated men, but men from humble labouring classes, converted and brought out by the revivals in England, Ireland and Scotland, and this is the bit that I particularly like, and showing zeal and aptness to preach and labour for the salvation of souls. Fundamental. Hence, they will not be very likely to fritter away foolishly their time in reading dusty old Chinese tomes and in making books and tracts that nobody will read. For me, that just encapsulates the whole thing, because I think that there's a leaning towards missionary work, but with these kind of super educated guys with lots of skills, and you know what the danger of that is, that focus of missionary work is lost, and it was recognised even back in the 19th century that, you know, you send the wrong person out and they don't have this kind of zeal and aptness to preach, and they're not passionate about winning souls for Christ, then what are you doing really? You're just sending out somebody almost on a gap year. You're sending somebody out to just enjoy eating rice and chicken or whatever, and just, you know, you're not it's not serving a purpose. So I think that, you know, he's got this spot on, that you know, you have to be very careful who you send out, and it needs to be this focus on showing zeal and aptness to preach, and labour for the salvation of souls. I mean, for me, that's the key sentence in this whole section, and I think that you know, that's a problem for a lot of missionary societies nowadays, and I can understand why they spend time vetting applicants, and it's right, they should do that, but that should be a priority, I believe. And the last one as well, they're willing to rough it, and that's an interesting one as well, because I don't think people really realise just how difficult missionary work really is, and they should be prepared to have a tough time of it. And I think sometimes your own life experience should really give you that knowledge to do it. And I'm not saying a rich person couldn't do it, a person that's had it easy all their life. I don't say that they shouldn't be a missionary, but I think sometimes you need to have this expectation and possibly a life experience of having difficult times. I've certainly known poverty and difficulty, and I'm not saying, you know, it won't be a problem, but I think that there are certain people that are more able to deal with it than others, and I think that's an interesting quality, you know, that you need to warn them about as well. It's not going to be all, you know, you're not going to stay in a 5-star hotel and be chauffeured around. You know, it's going to be rough and it's going to be difficult, and I think that's an important thing to say. So anyway, so sidetracking a little bit, but I felt that it needed to be said, because this man, Hudson Taylor, he did so much in China, it's just beyond estimation. As to the extent of the Christians converted in China now that are as a result of him, you know, his preaching and the descendants of those that he preached to, it's got to be interesting. I bet that number is significant. And I do recommend this book thoroughly to you. I do think that it would be worth your time to read. As I said, I read it pretty much in one sitting, maybe 2 days, but I'm sure it was one. I can't remember now, but it was one. I'm pretty confident that that's the case. And he's very much a guy that lives by faith in God. And you see this demonstrated over and over and over again in this book. And I do recommend it. A Man in Christ by Roger Steer. I'll put a link or some information up on the video, but I honestly recommend this book to you. You'll read it and you'll be galvanised to want to do something, and I'm sure it will lead you into prayer about it. I'm sure it will, because it will challenge you. It will definitely challenge you. So, thoroughly recommended. Okay, guys, thanks very much. Thank you. Bye.